morning, Your Honor.
Good morning. Her Madam State Attorney.
Counsel. I've got to get away from you, or I am going to kill you. You have to tell me when you're masturbating when I'm gone, or I will kill you. Those were the words of this defendant 2 days before his wife, Brandy Solenza, was found shot and killed in their home, in their master bedroom. Those threats to kill were captured on their home surveillance system, on a camera in their bedroom on April 5th. All was quiet the morning of April 7th, 2018. Brandy lived at a home on 23 Felter Lane with her husband, the defendant, and their 6-year-old child, her 6-year-old child. She had plans to go to the fair later with her sister Amber, and she had reached out to her just 15 to 20 minutes before her death via text to confirm those plans. What Brandy probably didn't know that morning was how real those threats were and how quickly they would turn into actions that morning on the 7th. At 10:37 a.m., the Flagler County Sheriff's Office received a 911 call from this defendant, Keith Johansen. Mr. Johansen stated that he wanted an officer. He was in the shower. He heard 2 gunshots, and he immediately got out and called 911. He told the dispatcher, "I can't see where she shot. I don't see any blood." And the dispatcher kept asking him, "Can you provide CPR? Can you try to wake her up? Can you render aid?" And he ignored some of those requests at first and ultimately told the dispatcher, "I can't get to her. I can't see her. I'm slipping and sliding all around the bedroom floor. I'm soaking wet." Deputies with the Flagler County Sheriff's Office arrive and find Brandy Solenza unresponsive on the master bedroom floor between the bed and a nightstand with her head up against the wall. Just beyond her feet, beyond her body, are 2 9mm handguns positioned facing inwards towards each other. Responding deputies assist rescue personnel to get in the house. They escort the defendant and the child to the front porch area so they can assess Miss Solenza. And unfortunately, just a short time after they arrived, she was pronounced deceased by rescue personnel. You will hear testimony from responding deputies that while they noticed some water on the floor on one side of the bedroom, sort of towards the bathroom, there was no water on the floor by the victim. Mr. Johansen wasn't wet. His hair wasn't wet. And the bathroom and the shower didn't look like a shower had just happened and someone rushed out in a hurry to assist somebody. After the scene was secured, the detectives from the Flagler County Sheriff's Office and crime scene investigators arrived, and various tasks began breaking up amongst all the staff. A search warrant was obtained, and crime scene investigator C.C. Woody, along with an assistant, began to photograph, document the house, collect any evidence that was there on scene. While that was going on, and it took well into the night of the 7th, and they even returned on the 8th to continue working, but into the night on the 7th, while that was going on, Detective Nicole Quinteri, you'll hear her referred to as Nicole Thomas throughout the investigation at this time, she was assigned as the case agent, and she was asked to interview Mr. Johansen. As you can imagine, as the only adult in the home, any information Mr. Johansen could provide would be important to this investigation. So she and Corporal Haristokopoulos sat down with the defendant and talked to him over several hours. He began by describing his relationship had his back. She had just such a bubbly and sweet personality, and that everything was great. That's the picture he painted for quite some time in that interview. Eventually, Detective Quinteri asked him, point blank him, are you two faithful? Has there ever been any infidelity? He says, well, she did have this online thing. She flirted. She sent some pictures somewhere on the internet, but she admitted it, and it was okay. I got over it. It was no big deal. He actually describes her as noble for telling him, and that he respected her so much for volunteering this information. When asked about what happened that day, the morning of the 7th, why they were there, he again described how he had gotten in the shower, that actually Brandy had come over and peeked through the shower curtain in a playful manner with him. He took a shower, and a few minutes later, he heard 2 pops, and then immediately got out, naked, rushed to her, and then called 911. He even complained during this part that the dispatcher on 911 was rude to him during the call. You will get to hear that call, ladies and gentlemen, and I ask you to pay attention especially to the first things that the defendant says. What he isn't saying, he isn't screaming for help, he isn't screaming, save my wife. He's saying, I was in the shower, I think my wife shot herself accidentally. He talks to detectives for quite a while, and he keeps insisting that this is accidental, maybe she dropped the guns, she would never kill herself, it's not suicide. The detectives question him on how this could be accidental if she was shot 2 times, and he obviously doesn't offer up a good theory on that. While the crime scene investigators and detectives are in the scene back on Felser Lane, they notice in the home and outside of the home several surveillance cameras. There's one on the front door facing the road. There's one in the house that's pretty obvious on a dining room table facing like the dining room out into the living room. And several cameras kind of in the house that they're not clear if they're operational or not. So that information gets passed to Detective Quinteri, and she asked the defendant in the interview, what's up with these cameras? And he's like, oh, there's not one in the bedroom, and the rest don't really work. There's some battery issues. I just got them, tried to install them a few weeks ago, but they're not working. As that night went on into the 7th, the detectives still had a lot of questions, and the autopsy for Miss Solenza wasn't going to be till the next day. And so the defendant was allowed to go home that night, and he was not arrested. During the next few weeks, several pieces of information came in that was very helpful to the detectives. You will hear from the chief medical examiner, Dr. Bulick, who performed Brandy Solenza's autopsy, and he will describe her injuries. And in fact, there were 2 gunshot wounds. One wound to the center of her chest was fired at close or contact range. And he will describe how he knows that, why he knows that, and what that means is either the muzzle of the gun was pressed up against her shirt and skin, or very, very, very close to it to create the stippling pattern and things he will describe to you. That wound was actually not fatal because she was shot that time with a less than lethal round or projectile, a rubber projectile, essentially. The second gunshot wound, however, was fatal. It's also in the chest, breast area. This shot went through Miss Solenza, out her back at a downward angle. You'll actually see photographs that entered into the nightstand and then through the nightstand into the drywall. And you'll see photos of how CSI Woody removed that. That gunshot wound, the medical examiner will tell you, was at a distant range, at least 3 feet or more away, the muzzle of the firearm. In addition to these autopsy findings, the Flagler County Sheriff's Office eventually received a package of videos from a company called Arlo. They got them about April 27th, about 20 days after the homicide. They had served a search warrant on Arlo, and it took some time, but they received this package of videos and reviewed them. Detective Quinteri will tell you how she reviewed each and every one of these clips, and there's over 200 of them. They asked for a certain time period, and they received videos back, some for April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th, nothing on April 6th, and some on April 7th, the day of the homicide. The story the videos tell is quite different than this defendant's story about his marriage, what had been going on, and the morning of the 7th. The videos prove the true motive for this crime and the truth that the defendant couldn't tell. The video evidence will show that the defendant was angry. Very, very, very angry at his wife. He perceived that she had been cheating on him via the internet, talking to people, sending photos, and masturbating without his knowledge. These videos are difficult to watch, but they're important evidence in this case, and it's important that you consider them. These videos tell a story, and it appears that the defendant and Brandy participated in mutual masturbation. And that was often videoed by not only the surveillance system in their home, but on several of the videos it appears that a laptop is in the middle of the bed, and while Ms. Solenza and sometimes Mr. Johansen are masturbating, Mr. Johansen operates that laptop. When the defendant thought she had cheated on him, that's the topic of conversation on April 5th. He thought that she was participating in this behavior without his knowledge. He began to threaten to kill her over and over and over again over a span of 5.5 hours, at least, is what is captured on the videos. Sometimes Brandy sits there crying. Sometimes she just sits and stares blankly at the wall as he does this. And sometimes she even sits there and masturbates as he's berating her and threatening to kill her. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but what it does is it shows you what was truly happening in this defendant's house and what he thought about his wife. Just 2 days later, obviously, something happened that morning. Something that brought that anger back, and those threats became a reality for Miss Solenza. You'll find out that the defendant removed the camera at the end of the night of the 5th. You can actually see him as they're fighting, take the camera, walk out of the master bedroom with it, and put it out in the living room. So there's not going to be a video of the homicide. However, there is video from inside the house on the morning of the 7th. The video camera that sits at their dining room sort of points out to the living room, and you'll see them in the morning, both of them, as they come past those cameras. They're motion activated. As the defendant makes his 911 call, and he's telling the dispatcher, "I can't see her, I can't get to her, I'm slipping." While he's saying that, the videos show, in actuality, he's not even in the room with her. He's in his living room, running around, picking up marijuana, and things he doesn't want the cops to see when they get there. The evidence will show he didn't care about Brandy Solenza at all. Not before she died, and certainly not immediately after. Ladies and gentlemen, all of the evidence in this case, when the case is concluded, the state is confident that the evidence will prove to you beyond a doubt that this defendant killed his wife, that he premeditated it, he had the thought, he certainly expressed his desire to kill her, and after some time in reflection, he did that. He carried out those threats on the morning of April 7th, and that is first-degree murder, and we're confident you will return that verdict at the end of this trial. Thank you.
Okay, wow, what an opening statement. We'll slip in a break here and hear from the defense next. Stay with us. Welcome back. We just heard from the state of Florida. Now it's time to hear from the defense. Gary Wood delivering the opening statement.
This is a case that we talked about in jury selection just yesterday, where you are now charged, sworn under oath, to follow the law, the instructions you'll get in this case, to listen to the evidence fairly and impartially, and make a decision at the end of this case whether the state has proven the allegations in each and every element, including premeditation, against this defendant beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. That is a burden of proof, and it is a high burden the state must meet in this case. You'll be instructed that if there's reasonable doubt, and the judge will give the instruction of reasonable doubt at the end of this case, you are required as a matter of law to find him not guilty. And that is what we're going to be asking you to do in this case. In every criminal case, the state has, no matter what the charge is, the state has the burden of proving two things. One, whether the crime was committed, and two, whether the accused is the person that committed the crime. You're going to hear a different backstory on this case that's going to be very important in how you decide this case. Ms. Solenza was killed in self-defense, and you're going to hear instruction about what self-defense is and justifiable homicide. It's a very tragic case, and I'll explain what happened and what evidence you will hear, both through cross-examination of the state's witnesses and from testimony that we'll also provide on our side. There'll be some basic things that will not be disputed in terms of some of the background in this case. It is true that in April of 2018, Mr. Johansen, my client, was married to Brandy Solenza. Ms. Solenza had a young child, Ryland, who lived in the house also on Felter Lane in Palm Coast. What you will find out, and will actually be proven through the medical examiner testimony, is what happened in the many days leading up to her death. And that is the one thing that Mr. Johansen could not tell his parents or the police on the 7th, which is both of them have been binging for many days on methamphetamine. And you'll find out in the autopsy procedure that Dr. Bulick's office, as is routine when they do an autopsy, will draw blood and send that blood to a lab to be tested for the existence of any controlled substances. And you will find out that Brandy Solenza had, in fact, consumed methamphetamine. She had it in her blood. She also tested positive for THC, which is the element of marijuana. And that this methamphetamine is a very powerful, very addictive stimulant that has a whole host of side effects that we'll call an expert, Dan Buffington, who's an expert forensic pharmacologist from Tampa, will be called by us to explain what these side effects are for methamphetamine, as well as from the THC or the marijuana that was found in Ms. Solenza's blood. You'll also, I'm sure, hear some testimony on these very same side effects from Dr. Bulick, the medical examiner that the state will call. You'll hear testimony that on the many days leading up to her death, not only were they consuming, smoking the methamphetamine, but Brandy, Ms. Solenza, had not been sleeping for days on end, up including the night before her death. And this will be important because it will help to explain what actually did happen on that morning of April the 7th. On that morning, the three of them were in the house. Ryland was there, had gotten up in the morning. You'll see some videos from the morning where Ms. Solenza got up, Ryland got up. You'll see, I expect Ms. Solenza will be walking around inside the living room area. As Ms. Dutton pointed out, at that time on the 7th of April, there is a surveillance camera on the dining room table facing towards the living room, and you'll see the activity going on there. You will not see on any video from April the 7th any arguments or problems or yelling or issues or threats made by Mr. Johansen or, to that fact, from Ms. Solenza either that morning. You'll see where at some point that morning, Mr. Johansen grabs his jeans out of the living room, goes back in a direction that would be towards the master bedroom where both Ms. Solenza and Mr. Johansen slept. You'll also see Amber eventually, after Keith, you'll see her walking in the living room. At one point, you'll see where she's standing in front of a safe that is next to it's in the interior of the living room, of the front door that leads into the living room. And you'll find out this through evidence testimony that there's guns and ammunition that's stored in that safe. But you'll see Ms. Solenza looking at the safe, walking away, heading back, as I say, in a direction of the bedroom. And then you'll see a very brief period of time after that, Mr. Johansen does call 911. You'll see him in the living room. It is true, you'll see his activity where he is moving marijuana and paraphernalia from the living room area. So those videos will be self-evident. During the important period of time in the bedroom, there was no plan to kill Ms. Solenza that morning, or at all. There was no intent to kill her. Mr. Johansen did go into the shower, and there's a bathroom that's right off the master bedroom where there's a shower. Got in the shower very quickly, heard Ms. Solenza say something to the effect of boo, which is a nickname she has for Mr. Johansen. Mr. Johansen reacted to that by coming out of the bathroom and sees Ms. Solenza, who had been up for many days consuming methamphetamine, with a gun. In fact, it'll be a Beretta 9mm that she has. You'll find out that Mr. Johansen then leaves the bathroom, goes into the bedroom, and there in the bedroom is another 9mm, which is a Canic firearm. Mr. Johansen takes that firearm, approaches Brandy, who has a gun in her hand, gets close to her, and you'll hear where Amber then, with the gun in her hand, with the Beretta in her hand, makes a swinging type motion, resulting in a gun being pointed at Mr. Johansen. It's at that point Mr. Johansen uses the lawful defense of self-defense. In Florida, you are allowed to use deadly force if deadly force is about to be inflicted upon you to prevent death or serious bodily injury. And Mr. Johansen fired 2 shots. One of the shots, as Ms. Dutton has already pointed out, was a rubber bullet. You'll hear the terminology the police will use called less lethal ammunition, but it's a rubber bullet, green rubber bullet. What'll be important is that you'll also find out that there is a lot of rubber bullets or less lethal ammunition in other guns that are inside the house, ammunition that's in the safe. You'll see some and hear some evidence, some pictures with regard to the fact that Mr. Johansen had rubber bullets. And the reason for that will be to prevent accidental shootings. Unfortunately, the second shot that was fired was not a rubber bullet, and that is the shot that did kill her and did apparently go through the nightstand into the wall behind the nightstand. You'll see pictures and hear testimony about that. But this is a case, tragically, of self-defense as a result of the actions that Ms. Solenza took that morning. You will hear that, just 1 minute. You will hear testimony about Netgear videos. It'll be explained to you, but there's Netgear in Arlo. Arlo used to be a subsidiary of Netgear. Anyway, long story short, there's cameras inside the house, both on the outside and the inside. And so you're going to be provided with some videos, but keep in mind, we'll emphasize this even more so at the end of this case, the videos you are going to see are certainly things that Mr. Johansen said. And there was an argument about some sexual activity of Ms. Solenza, etc. 2 days before this happened. What you will not see, as Ms. Dutton pointed out to you, is any so-called threats or arguments on the April 3rd or April 4th. There are going to be large gaps of time where there won't be videos, including the fact that there is no production of any videos from April the 6th, the day before the shooting. What you will find out, though, is on that very same day, the day before the shooting, is that Mr. Johansen and Brandy visited at separate times with 2 different people. And that the 2 of them were getting along fine, and these 2 people will testify to that effect. You're going to hear earlier in the day that Mr. Johansen went and visited with Brandy to Dawn Eagleson, who's a neighbor on Felter Avenue. Miss Eagleson, still married, was married at the time, and knew Brandy from seeing each other at the bus stop with regard to the kids. And so on that day, the Johansens went over to the Eaglesons' house. They were there very briefly. There was some marijuana consumed. Everybody's getting along great. No arguments, no issues or anything. Later on that same night, on the 6th, the day before the shooting, you're going to hear from a friend of Brandy's and Mr. Johansen's, a woman named Joanna Salmons. Ms. Salmons lived in Palm Coast for a good while. She was living in Palm Coast at the time of this incident. She now lives in Loganville, Georgia, and she's going to be appearing by Zoom in this case to testify, as she had previously provided information to the police, that the evening of the 6th, that she came over to the Johansen house. They watched movies together. They hung out. They smoked marijuana. Everybody's getting along great, including Brandy and Keith. No arguments, no issues. And then eventually that night, Miss Salmons leaves, and Keith is on the couch asleep. Matter of fact, I'll expect that you'll probably see a video where that night Mr. Johansen gets up in the middle of the night from the living room area. This would be the same day, the 6th, where this camera is still sitting on the dining room table. So we're going to be asking you to keep in mind the gap of time between what you're going to see on the videos and what you're going to see on the 7th, the day of the shooting. And it is absolutely true, as Ms. Dutton says, that you will never see a video on the 7th of any argument, threats, shooting from Mr. Johansen in intentional, premeditated design. You will see, regarding also to the Netgear videos, and we're going to point this out in cross-examination for your consideration, even on the 5th of April, 2 days before, you're never going to see a continuous video of the discussions, arguments, what have you, between the two of them in the bedroom that night. The videos are going to stop and start. And I expect the records custodian who's going to testify in this case will, who's not an IT person, but is general counsel for Arlo, believes that the camera system is activated by motion, but it could be by voice or noise. But there will be gaps of time. And as I say, there'll also be long gaps of time throughout these days leading up to the 7th. So we're going to be asking you to consider everything in context at the end of this case. Now, in every criminal case, a defendant is never required to testify on his own behalf. He has the absolute right to remain silent. And it is always, and will be in this case, the burden of the state to prove his guilt beyond every reasonable doubt. But you will hear from Mr. Johansen through his own testimony in this case. You will see and hear from him, and he will outline for you in much greater detail than I'm providing now as to what happened that fateful morning. But he's going to tell you that and explain to you that he didn't want to bring up to his parents or the police about their long-term chronic meth use, particularly Brandy's binge leading up to this shooting. And he's going to admit that what he told the police and his parents was not the truth as far as the events of an accidental shooting or Brandy shooting herself. He's going to tell you that he feared for his life when he's in the bedroom. Brandy made statements, strange statements of, "You're not my husband, you're plastic," wasn't making sense, which is going to be consistent with some of the serious side effects of methamphetamine use. and that he did what he did to protect himself. Didn't want to, tried to keep it from happening, and it happened very, very quickly inside the bedroom. There'll be some other testimony in this case, I expect, from the state. We'll certainly be able to challenge testimony from a particular witness named Corey Lynch, who's an inmate now being housed in the St. Johns County Jail. But listen to his testimony. This is going to be a man who's been given a sweetheart deal to testify for the state in this case with pending charges. We'll get into that on cross-examination, certainly, so that you can assess his credibility or lack thereof. But ladies and gentlemen, at the end of the day, this is a case of justifiable use of deadly force that Mr. Johansen did not want to have happen. But at the end of the day, at the end of this case, we're going to be asking you, as we do now, to find Mr. Johansen not guilty of homicide in this case. Thank you.
Whoa, okay. That defense open was a little bit, this whole thing's a little different than we thought it was going to be from the prosecution's open. Now the defense tells us that, and tells the jury, the defendant's going to take the stand and say this was self-defense, that his wife was on meth and was basically hallucinating, and that he grabbed a gun to protect